She had always loved the piano. Ever since she was little, she felt a special connection with the keys, the way the notes would rise and fall, and how music could express everything she sometimes could not say in words. But despite her love, she had never been in a place where anyone truly noticed her talent. She would practice quietly in her room, the soft sunlight falling through the window, imagining one day someone might hear her play and understand her heart through her music. Her family was supportive but not wealthy, and they lived in a neighborhood where opportunities for artistic growth were rare. Even though she dreamed of performing in front of people, the chances seemed small. She often played for herself or for close friends who sometimes stopped by. To them, she was just someone who loved the piano, but she was also much more than that. She could make the piano sing in ways that surprised even her at times. One day, a friend told her about a social gathering happening in a nearby hall. It was a gathering of people who appreciated music, including a few well-known pianists. The invitation made her heart race. She had never been around such an audience, and the thought of them watching her play was both thrilling and terrifying. But deep down, she felt this could be her moment to show that her talent was real. On the day of the event, she dressed simply but neatly, trying to appear calm even though her stomach was full of butterflies. As she entered the hall, she saw people chatting in small groups, laughing, and exchanging greetings. There were musicians among them, some with instruments in hand, others just talking about compositions and performances they had seen. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was a world she had only dreamed of, and now she was part of it, even for just a little while. While she looked for a quiet corner, she noticed a man who seemed to draw attention easily. He was confident, almost too confident, and people laughed at his jokes and hung on his every word. She overheard him talking about music, and the way he spoke made it clear he believed he was far better than everyone else around him. When he glanced at her, a smirk appeared on his face, almost as if he could tell she did not belong in this environment. Something inside her tightened. She had felt doubt from others before, but this felt sharper, heavier. It was a challenge she could not ignore. She tried to focus on the little things that always helped her calm down before playing. Taking deep breaths, imagining the piano keys under her fingers, thinking about the songs that had carried her through difficult moments. She remembered practicing late at night, when the house was silent, and the world felt as if it existed only for her and the piano. The music had always been her companion, and it had given her strength when words failed. As the event continued, she listened to others play and realized how nervous she was becoming. The man who had smirked at her earlier noticed her attention and, with a loud laugh, said, "Are you here to play or just to watch?" His tone was teasing but carried a sharp edge. The room turned slightly towards her. She felt the weight of all those eyes, the doubt they carried, and the sneering anticipation that she might fail. For a moment, she froze. The familiar fear whispered in her mind, telling her she was not ready, that she did not belong here, that everyone would laugh. But then she remembered the hours she had spent at the piano, the sweat, the frustration, the joy, and the quiet triumphs of mastering something new. She thought about the music she had written in her head and sometimes on paper, music that nobody had heard but that told her story. She realized she could not let this fear decide for her. She had a choice: hide or step forward. She took a deep breath, feeling the rhythm of her heartbeat align with the rhythm she imagined in the piano piece she had been practicing. She walked toward the piano in the corner of the hall. The man noticed and laughed again, louder this time, drawing a few more eyes to her. "Well, this will be interesting," he said, smirking. She ignored him, focusing instead on the keys, letting her fingers hover just above them, feeling the cool smoothness of the black and white notes. When she sat down, she felt a strange mix of nervousness and calm. It was as if the piano recognized her, welcomed her, and reminded her that this was her place, her moment. She closed her eyes briefly, imagining the notes flowing like a river through her hands, each key a stepping stone in a melody that was hers alone. The crowd had fallen quiet, curious, waiting for her first note. Some expected failure. Others were simply curious to see what would happen. Her hands touched the keys, light at first, almost tentative. But the moment she pressed down, she felt the music respond to her. It was as if the piano itself had been waiting for this, ready to reveal something magical. The first few notes were soft, delicate, almost hesitant, yet they carried an unexpected depth. The room shifted. People leaned in, listening more closely. The man who had laughed at her earlier raised his eyebrows, surprise flickering across his face. He had not expected this. She continued to play, letting the music build naturally, each note flowing into the next. Her emotions poured into the melody. Her fingers moved with confidence now, telling a story of struggle, hope, and triumph without a single word. The audience began to feel the power of what they were hearing, the beauty of someone expressing themselves so fully and honestly. There was no pretense, no attempt to impress. It was simply the music and her. Her heart raced not from fear now, but from the joy of finally sharing what she had always loved. She saw faces in the crowd change, expressions softening, eyes widening with amazement. Even the man who had doubted her seemed unable to look away. He shifted uncomfortably, realizing that his laughter had been premature. She was not just good. She was remarkable. The music reached a gentle climax, notes rising and falling in perfect harmony, carrying emotion that words could never capture. She felt a connection to everyone in the room, the way music could create an invisible thread between people, binding them in a shared experience. It was a moment of pure magic, a transformation from doubt to admiration, from hesitation to awe. When she finally played the last note, the room remained silent for a heartbeat, as if everyone was suspended in the moment. Then, slowly, applause began to rise. It started with a few claps, then more, until the hall was filled with sound, cheering, and murmurs of astonishment. People looked at her differently now, seeing not just the girl who had entered timidly, but the woman who had made the piano speak. The man who had laughed at her earlier now approached, his expression a mixture of respect and surprise. He extended his hand, a small gesture that carried weight. She accepted it politely, a quiet acknowledgement that the moment had shifted. She had proved not only to him but to herself that her talent was real and undeniable. It was a victory, not measured by arrogance or cruelty, but by the simple power of music and the courage to share it. As she left the piano, she felt lighter, freer, and stronger than ever. This was the beginning, she realized, not the end. Opportunities would come, doors would open, and people would listen. But more importantly, she had learned something vital. Talent and passion cannot be hidden forever, and the courage to step forward, even in the face of doubt, can change everything. The memory of that first note, the silence, and the rising applause would stay with her forever, a reminder of what is possible when you believe in yourself and your art. After the applause faded, she felt a strange mixture of relief and excitement. The room had been filled with people who had doubted her, yet she had shown them a piece of her soul through music. Still, she knew this was only the beginning. She wanted to grow, to explore more, and to prove to herself that her talent could reach even greater heights. That evening, she returned home, her mind buzzing with thoughts and emotions. She replayed every moment of her performance, every note, every reaction in her mind. The way people had listened so attentively, the surprise on the man's face, and the quiet sense of pride she felt herself were all vivid in her memory. But amidst all of this, she also noticed something important. She realized how much she had learned in that brief encounter. It wasn't just about playing notes correctly. It was about connecting with people through music, feeling each emotion, and expressing it honestly. The next day, she sat at her piano again, as she had countless times before, but now something had changed. Her practice was no longer just about improving technique. It was about storytelling, about letting the music carry her thoughts and feelings in a way words never could. She began experimenting with melodies, harmonies, and rhythms she had only imagined before. She pushed herself to try new things, knowing that each small step would bring her closer to something extraordinary. Her dedication caught the attention of her closest friends and family. They noticed the passion in her eyes and the way she seemed more alive when she played. They encouraged her, reminding her that what she had shared with the world at that gathering was only a glimpse of what she could achieve. Their support, quiet but unwavering, fueled her determination. She began to understand that talent alone was not enough. Courage, persistence, and belief in oneself were just as essential. Meanwhile, word about her performance had begun to spread. People who had attended the event talked about the girl who had silenced the room with a single note. Some reached out to offer opportunities, invitations to smaller recitals, or even mentorship from more experienced musicians. Though she was grateful, she remained focused on honing her craft, understanding that these opportunities were a privilege she needed to be ready for. She also spent time reflecting on the man who had doubted her. At first, she felt anger and frustration, but she realized that holding on to these feelings would not help her grow. Instead, she chose to see him as a challenge she had already overcome. His laughter had sparked something in her, a determination to prove her worth not through confrontation, but through excellence. She understood that people's doubts often stemmed from their own insecurities, and her music could shine brightest when she focused on her own growth, rather than the opinions of others. Days turned into weeks, and her confidence deepened. She started composing her own pieces, experimenting with sounds that reflected her emotions and experiences. Some were soft and melancholic, others lively and hopeful. Each piece was a reflection of her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. She began recording these compositions, playing them repeatedly, analyzing every note, every transition, making subtle changes to perfect her vision. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was an extension of her voice. During this time, she also sought out other musicians to learn from. She attended workshops and small local concerts, absorbing techniques and ideas. She listened carefully to how professionals expressed emotion through timing, dynamics, and phrasing. Every observation was a lesson, and she applied these lessons to her own playing. She learned that talent alone was not enough. Hard work, observation, and constant improvement were crucial for anyone who wished to stand out. Her dedication began to show tangible results. She could play more complex pieces with greater ease, expressing subtle emotions that she had struggled to convey before. Her audience, whether friends, family, or small gatherings, noticed the depth and maturity in her music. People were moved, sometimes to tears, by the way she could communicate feelings through melody and harmony. Each performance, no matter how small, reinforced her belief that she had a unique gift. One evening, while practicing a particularly difficult piece, she paused to reflect. She thought about how far she had come, from the shy girl who hesitated to play in front of anyone, to someone who could command attention and touch hearts with a single note. She realized that growth was not linear. It came with moments of doubt, frustration, and even failure. But each of these moments had shaped her, teaching her patience, resilience, and the importance of staying true to herself. As she prepared for her next opportunity to perform publicly, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She knew that people would have expectations, and some might still doubt her abilities. But she also knew that her music had power, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. She was ready to face any audience, to share her story through the piano, and to let her talent speak for itself. She also began to mentor younger students who showed interest in music. Sharing her knowledge and experience brought her joy and a sense of responsibility. She encouraged them to practice not just to impress others, but to find their own voice through music. Watching their progress reminded her of her own journey, and she felt grateful for the mentors and supporters who had guided her along the way. With each passing day, her confidence grew stronger. She started to embrace challenges rather than fear them. She realized that the world would always have doubters, but her focus was on what she could control: her dedication, her creativity, and her ability to connect with others through music. This mindset became her foundation, giving her the courage to step into new experiences and perform with authenticity. Her story was no longer just about proving herself to the man who had laughed at her. It was about embracing her passion, trusting her abilities, and using her music to inspire others. She understood that true talent was not measured by external validation alone, but by the willingness to grow, the courage to take risks, and the capacity to touch hearts through genuine expression. By the end of this period, she felt a deep sense of purpose. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was her voice, her companion, and her means of communicating the depth of her emotions. She had discovered that music could transform not only the listener but also the performer, giving her confidence, resilience, and a sense of belonging in a world that had once seemed out of reach. She looked ahead to the future with excitement. More performances, new compositions, and opportunities to connect with audiences awaited her. She knew challenges would continue to arise, but she was ready. Her talent, honed through dedication and courage, would carry her forward. And through it all, she remembered the quiet moments at the piano in her room, where her journey had begun, and she felt grateful for the music that had always believed in her even when others had not. The day of the next big event arrived, and she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness unlike anything she had experienced before. This was not just a casual gathering. It was a chance to perform in front of musicians, critics, and people who truly understood the value of music. She had prepared for weeks, practicing every piece until her fingers knew the keys as if they were a part of her own body. But even with all the preparation, she could feel her heart racing as she walked into the hall. The room was alive with conversation, laughter, and the occasional sound of a piano being tested. People were dressed elegantly, and the atmosphere was both formal and welcoming. She noticed the same man who had laughed at her before. He was talking to a group, probably boasting about his own skill and experience. He noticed her as soon as she entered and gave a small, mocking smile. She felt a brief flicker of doubt but quickly pushed it aside. She had learned that his opinion no longer defined her. She had grown since that first encounter, and this was her moment to show it. As she waited for her turn, she found a quiet corner and closed her eyes. She pictured the keys beneath her fingers, imagined the flow of music, and recalled the moments at home when she practiced tirelessly, often losing herself in the melodies. The memories gave her a sense of calm and strength. She reminded herself that music was her voice, and that every note she played carried a part of her story. When it was her turn, she walked to the piano with steady steps. The room quieted, all eyes turning toward her. She could feel the tension, the curiosity, and perhaps a little skepticism from those who did not know her yet. She sat down, her fingers hovering above the keys for a brief moment. Then she began to play. The first note was soft, yet it held a surprising richness. It filled the room, capturing the attention of everyone present. The man who had laughed before seemed momentarily stunned. He leaned slightly forward, listening more carefully now. She could see in his eyes that he was starting to understand the depth of her talent. But she did not focus on him. Her attention was on the music and the emotions she wanted to express. Each note was deliberate, each movement guided by her heart. The piece flowed naturally, as if the piano itself was alive and responding to her touch. People in the audience began to lean in, their expressions changing from curiosity to admiration. The music told a story of struggle, resilience, and hope. She played with passion, letting the melody rise and fall in a way that mirrored her journey. The quiet hum of appreciation spread across the room. She noticed a few people wiping their eyes, moved by the emotion behind her performance. This was more than playing notes. It was connecting with people through something that could not be spoken. Halfway through, she introduced a small improvisation she had been working on in secret. It was daring, different from anything anyone expected. She could feel the energy in the room shift, the anticipation, the surprise, and the joy as her fingers danced across the keys. Each chord and arpeggio seemed to reach directly into the hearts of the listeners. Even the man who had doubted her now sat quietly, no longer speaking or laughing, just absorbing the music. She continued, her confidence growing with each passing moment. The music seemed to carry her beyond the walls of the hall, as if she were telling her story to the world. Memories of her quiet practices at home, the encouragement from her family, and the challenges she had faced all became part of the performance. Every note was a reflection of her journey, her emotions, and her dedication. She realized that this was what true music was, an expression of self that could inspire and touch others deeply. As the final notes approached, she played them with a gentle strength, allowing the music to linger in the air. The room was silent for a heartbeat, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started softly but grew louder and louder until the entire hall was filled with clapping, cheering, and whistles of appreciation. People were standing, some with tears in their eyes, moved by the beauty and authenticity of her performance. The man who had laughed at her approached, his expression a mixture of surprise and respect. He extended his hand, acknowledging her skill and talent without words. She accepted it with grace, knowing that this moment was not about revenge or proving him wrong. It was about showing the power of dedication, passion, and belief in oneself. She had grown beyond his opinion. She had proven to herself what she was capable of. After the performance, several people approached her with praise and offers of mentorship, invitations to play at other events, and suggestions for future opportunities. She felt overwhelmed, yet grateful. She knew that every offer was a chance to continue her journey, to explore her abilities further, and to touch even more lives with her music. But she also understood that the most important validation came from within, from her own confidence and commitment to her craft. That night, as she returned home, she reflected on how much she had changed. The girl who had been nervous and hesitant was now someone who could face an audience with courage and share her heart through music. She realized that the journey was just beginning and that there would always be challenges ahead. But with each note she played, each melody she created, she grew stronger, more confident, and more certain of her path. She sat at her piano at home later that evening, replaying parts of her performance in her mind. She explored new variations, experimented with dynamics, and let her creativity flow freely. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was a part of her, a partner in her self-expression, and a bridge to connect with others. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that her dedication had brought her to this point and that the best was yet to come. The experience also taught her something valuable about people and life. She understood that not everyone would believe in her from the start, and some might even doubt her or laugh at her abilities. But those moments of doubt, instead of discouraging her, had fueled her determination to improve, to practice harder, and to rise above negativity. She learned that true strength came from resilience, self-belief, and the willingness to face challenges head-on. As she prepared for future performances, she continued to refine her skills and explore new musical ideas. Each practice session was an opportunity to discover something new, to push boundaries, and to grow as a musician. She sought inspiration from nature, emotions, and personal experiences, weaving them into her compositions. Her music became richer, more expressive, and more uniquely her own. She also began to mentor younger musicians who shared her passion for the piano. Teaching others gave her joy and a sense of responsibility. She encouraged them to find their own voice, to practice with patience and dedication, and to express their emotions authentically through music. Watching their progress reminded her of her own journey and reinforced her belief in the transformative power of art. Through it all, she remained humble and grounded, knowing that talent alone was not enough. It was the combination of skill, dedication, courage, and the willingness to connect with others that made her performances memorable. She understood that music was a universal language, capable of bridging gaps, touching hearts, and inspiring people in ways words could not. Her confidence continued to grow, and she felt ready to face any challenge that came her way. The man who had doubted her was no longer a source of fear or anger. He was simply a reminder of how far she had come and how much she had achieved through perseverance and passion. She knew that every obstacle was an opportunity to learn and grow, and that her music would continue to speak for her, no matter the circumstances. As she looked ahead, she imagined the many stages, recitals, and audiences that awaited her. She felt a deep sense of purpose and excitement, knowing that her journey was only beginning. Each note she played, each melody she created, was a step toward realizing her dreams and touching the lives of those who listened. And through it all, she carried with her the lessons of patience, resilience, and the power of believing in oneself. The next performance was unlike anything she had ever experienced. The hall was larger, with rows of seats filled with people who had come to hear talented musicians. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that something remarkable was about to happen. She arrived early, taking a moment to look at the grand piano on stage. It gleamed under the lights, almost as if it were inviting her to play and share her heart with the audience. As she prepared backstage, she could hear other performers warming up. Their skill and confidence reminded her of the journey she had taken to get here. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was a bigger stage, a more critical audience, and the stakes felt higher. But she also remembered how far she had come, the challenges she had overcome, and the moments when her music had touched others. She took a deep breath, letting that thought anchor her. When her name was announced, she walked to the piano, feeling the weight of the moment but also a sense of calm determination. She noticed the man who had once laughed at her sitting among the audience. He gave her a small nod, perhaps acknowledging her growth since that first encounter. The room was silent, all eyes focused on her. She sat down and let her fingers hover above the keys for a moment, feeling the smooth surface and the potential it held. She started with a gentle note, soft yet clear. The audience leaned in, curious, and perhaps a few doubted that she could hold their attention for long. But as the second note followed, then the third, the room began to change. Her music carried emotion, telling a story of hope, struggle, and joy. Each note seemed to connect with the hearts of those listening. She played not to impress but to share herself, and that authenticity shone through. Midway through the piece, she allowed herself to add an improvisation she had been practicing in secret. It was daring, unexpected, and filled with emotion. Her fingers moved confidently across the keys, creating a melody that was both powerful and delicate. The audience was captivated, and she could feel their energy feeding into her performance. The hall was alive with the music, and for a moment, it felt as if the world outside did not exist. She noticed reactions around her. People leaning forward, eyes widening in surprise, some nodding in rhythm with her melody. The man who had doubted her earlier sat quietly, absorbing each note. There was no mocking, no laughter, just the acknowledgement of her talent. She continued, pouring every bit of her passion and experience into the music. Every note was deliberate, every chord chosen to express the depth of her story. As she approached the final part of the piece, the music grew more intense. Her emotions poured into every key, conveying the culmination of her journey. The audience was fully immersed, feeling the highs and lows of the melody as if they were part of her story. She had learned that the true power of music was in its ability to connect people, to make them feel what she felt and to inspire them in ways words never could. The last notes were played with a gentle strength, lingering in the air like a soft echo. The hall remained silent for a brief moment, as if everyone was holding their breath, savoring the final resonance. Then the applause began. It started softly, with a few claps, and quickly grew into a thunderous ovation. People were on their feet, cheering and clapping with admiration. Some wiped tears from their eyes, moved by the beauty and sincerity of her performance. She stood and bowed, her heart full of gratitude and pride. The applause was not just for her skill, but for the honesty and emotion she had shared. The man who had once doubted her approached with a smile, extending his hand. She shook it, feeling a sense of closure and recognition. This moment was not about proving anyone wrong, but about embracing her talent and the journey she had taken to reach this point. After the performance, several people came forward to offer encouragement, mentorship, and opportunities to play at other venues. She was grateful but also thoughtful. Each opportunity was a chance to grow and share her music with a wider audience. She knew that her journey was ongoing, and every experience would add depth to her artistry. She felt a sense of purpose, understanding that her music could inspire and touch lives beyond her immediate surroundings. Backstage, she reflected on how much she had learned. Performing on a larger stage had taught her about the power of preparation, the importance of staying focused, and the impact of expressing genuine emotion through music. She realized that talent alone was not enough. It was the combination of skill, dedication, courage, and authenticity that created a memorable performance. She felt proud of herself, not just for the applause, but for the growth she had achieved through hard work and persistence. She continued to practice and compose new pieces, experimenting with melodies that reflected her experiences and emotions. Each composition was a journey, a reflection of her thoughts, and a way to connect with others. She found joy in discovering new rhythms, harmonies, and ways to express herself. The piano had become an extension of her voice, allowing her to communicate with the world in a way that was deeply personal and profoundly moving. Her experiences also inspired her to mentor others. She began working with younger musicians, teaching them not just technique but also the importance of emotion, patience, and self-belief. She encouraged them to explore their creativity and to trust their instincts, helping them understand that music was about more than perfection. It was about expression. Sharing her knowledge brought her fulfillment and a deeper understanding of her own journey. As weeks passed, she continued to perform at various events, each one a chance to grow and connect with new audiences. She faced challenges, moments of doubt, and pressure, but she met them with resilience and confidence. She had learned that every obstacle was an opportunity to improve, and that true success came from perseverance and passion. Her music became richer, more expressive, and more compelling with each performance. The man who had doubted her initially became a quiet supporter, acknowledging her talent and progress. Their encounters no longer carried tension but mutual respect. She had transformed not just through her skill but through her understanding of people, the value of patience, and the importance of staying true to oneself. She knew that the journey of growth never truly ends, and she embraced each new experience as part of her ongoing story. Through it all, she remained grounded. She remembered the quiet evenings at home, practicing for hours when no one was watching, and the early days of doubt and nervousness. Those moments had shaped her, teaching her the value of persistence and the joy of discovering her own voice. She understood that music was a lifelong journey, filled with continuous learning, exploration, and emotional connection. She looked forward to the future with anticipation. More performances, new compositions, and opportunities to share her music awaited her. She knew there would always be challenges, but she felt confident that her dedication, passion, and authenticity would guide her. Each note she played, each melody she created, was a step toward realizing her dreams and touching the lives of those who listened. And through it all, she carried with her the lessons of courage, resilience, and the power of believing in oneself. The next opportunity to perform came sooner than she expected. She had been invited to a prestigious event where accomplished musicians and critics would be present. This time, the hall was grand, the stage large, and the audience more discerning. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, but she reminded herself that this was what she had been working toward. She had practiced endlessly, pushing herself to explore new techniques, compositions, and ways of expressing emotion through music. Backstage, she took a deep breath and focused on the music she wanted to convey. She imagined each note, each chord, and the story she would tell through her performance. Memories of her previous performances helped her center herself, reminding her that she had grown stronger with each step. She also thought about the man who had once laughed at her. He was not a source of fear anymore, but a symbol of the challenges she had overcome. She smiled softly, feeling a quiet confidence. When her name was announced, she walked onto the stage, the audience waiting in anticipation. The lights were bright, and she felt their gaze, but instead of feeling pressure, she felt connected. She approached the piano and ran her fingers over the keys, feeling their smoothness and the possibilities they held. The first note she played was delicate yet clear, immediately drawing the audience into her world. As she continued, her music flowed naturally, carrying emotion and storytelling in every note. She had prepared a piece that was both technically challenging and emotionally rich. Her fingers moved gracefully across the keys, each movement deliberate and expressive. The audience was captivated, leaning in to catch every nuance of her playing. She could feel their attention, their admiration, and it fueled her performance even further. Halfway through the piece, she introduced a bold improvisation. This was her chance to show her individuality, the unique voice she had developed over years of practice and dedication. The melody shifted and evolved, taking unexpected turns, yet always feeling natural and coherent. The audience responded instinctively, their eyes widening in surprise and delight at the creativity and emotion she was expressing. She noticed subtle changes in the room. People whispering to each other, nodding with appreciation, and even holding their breath during particularly delicate moments. The man who had doubted her long ago watched quietly, no longer dismissive, but clearly impressed. She did not play for him or anyone in particular. She played for the music and the connection it created. Her focus was total, her mind fully immersed in the melody and the story she was telling. As the piece built toward its climax, the emotion intensified. She allowed herself to feel every note, every chord, and every pause. The music became a reflection of her journey. The early doubts, the relentless practice, the small victories, and the moments of pure joy. She played not just with skill, but with heart, letting the piano sing her story in a way that words could never convey. The audience was completely absorbed, some closing their eyes, others leaning forward, all moved by the power and authenticity of her performance. When she reached the final notes, she played them with gentle strength, allowing them to linger in the air. The hall was silent for a moment, the audience caught in the magic of the music. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started with soft claps, then swelled into a roaring ovation. People rose to their feet, cheering, clapping, and whistling. Some wiped tears from their eyes, moved by the beauty and emotion of her playing. It was a moment of pure connection, a culmination of years of dedication and passion. She stood and bowed, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and fulfillment. The applause was not just for her skill, but for the honesty and emotion she had shared. The man who had doubted her approached, extending his hand. She shook it with grace, feeling a sense of acknowledgement and closure. This moment was not about proving anyone wrong, but about celebrating her journey and the power of music to connect people and inspire them. After the performance, several influential musicians and critics approached her, offering guidance, mentorship, and opportunities for future performances. She felt a mixture of excitement and humility. Each opportunity was a chance to grow, to explore new musical ideas, and to share her gift with a wider audience. She understood that her journey was ongoing, and every experience would add depth to her artistry. She spent the following weeks reflecting on her performance and the lessons she had learned. She realized that true growth came not just from talent, but from dedication, resilience, and the willingness to embrace challenges. Each challenge, each moment of doubt, had shaped her into the musician she had become. She also understood the importance of authenticity. The most memorable performances were those where she allowed herself to be fully present and expressive. Her practice sessions became more focused and creative. She explored new compositions, experimented with rhythm and harmony, and pushed the boundaries of her musical expression. She found inspiration in nature, emotions, and personal experiences, weaving them into her performances. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was an extension of her voice, a partner in storytelling, and a bridge to connect with her audience. She also dedicated time to mentoring younger musicians. Sharing her experiences and encouraging them to explore their own creativity brought her immense joy. She emphasized the importance of patience, dedication, and self-belief, teaching them that music was not just about technique, but about expression and connection. Watching her students grow reminded her of her own journey and reinforced her commitment to her craft. As she prepared for future performances, she continued to challenge herself. She sought out opportunities to perform in diverse settings, learning to adapt and connect with different audiences. Each performance was a chance to grow, to refine her skills, and to deepen her emotional expression. She embraced the idea that learning was a lifelong journey, and that every experience, whether successful or challenging, contributed to her growth as a musician. Her confidence grew with each performance. She no longer feared doubt or criticism, understanding that every challenge was an opportunity to improve. The man who had once doubted her became a quiet supporter, acknowledging her talent and progress. She had transformed not only through her music but through her understanding of people, the value of resilience, and the importance of staying true to herself. Through it all, she remained grounded. She remembered the long hours of practice, the quiet moments of doubt, and the small victories that had led her to this point. Those experiences had taught her patience, perseverance, and the joy of discovering her own voice. She understood that music was a lifelong journey, one that required continuous learning, exploration, and emotional connection. Looking ahead, she felt a sense of purpose and excitement. More performances, new compositions, and opportunities to share her music awaited her. She knew challenges would continue to arise, but she was ready to face them with determination and passion. Each note she played, each melody she created, was a step toward realizing her dreams and touching the lives of those who listened. Through it all, she carried with her the lessons of courage, resilience, and the power of believing in oneself, knowing that her journey was just beginning. The final performance of her journey arrived on a cool evening, with the hall filled to the brim with people eager to experience the music that had become her voice. She felt a calm excitement as she walked through the doors, the soft murmurs of the audience creating a gentle buzz of anticipation. This was more than just another recital. It was the culmination of years of practice, growth, and the courage to believe in herself. She could feel the weight of the moment, but it no longer intimidated her. She had learned that music carried power beyond fear, doubt, or judgment. Backstage, she took a moment to center herself. Her hands rested lightly on the keys of a piano that gleamed under the stage lights. She closed her eyes and let her mind drift back to the quiet rooms where she had practiced alone. The late nights when she had explored melodies and rhythms with nothing but her imagination and determination. Those memories grounded her, reminding her that every step, every mistake, every triumph had led to this point. When her name was announced, she walked onto the stage with measured confidence. The audience was silent, their eyes fixed on her. She nodded slightly to acknowledge them and sat at the piano, feeling the smooth keys beneath her fingers. The first note she played was soft and clear, a simple sound that immediately drew the room into her world. She allowed herself to sink into the music, letting the emotions guide her hands and the story unfold naturally. As she continued, the melody became richer, more expressive. Each note carried a piece of her journey, the doubts she had faced, the hours of practice, the small victories that had built her confidence. She played not to impress anyone, but to share her heart and to connect with those listening. The audience responded instinctively, some leaning forward, others closing their eyes, all moved by the sincerity and depth of her performance. Midway through the piece, she introduced a daring improvisation she had been preparing in secret. It was a blend of technical skill and emotional expression, a way to tell her story without words. Her fingers danced across the keys with confidence, creating a melody that was unexpected yet perfectly harmonious. The audience was captivated, experiencing the music as a living, breathing entity. She could feel their energy feeding back into her playing, making every note more powerful and resonant. She noticed the man who had once doubted her sitting quietly in the audience. There was no trace of skepticism or mockery, only admiration. He watched as she navigated the challenging improvisation, his eyes reflecting surprise and respect. But she did not play for him. She played for the music and the connection it created. Every emotion, every nuance, every pause was meant to reach the hearts of the listeners, to make them feel the story behind each note. As the piece reached its climax, the intensity and emotion grew. She allowed herself to feel every chord, every melody, and every silence. The music became a narrative of her life, a journey of growth, perseverance, and triumph. She played with passion and authenticity, letting the piano speak for her in ways words never could. The audience was fully absorbed, some with tears in their eyes, others moved to smile or lean in, as if listening to something profoundly familiar and meaningful. The final notes were played with gentle strength, lingering in the air like a soft echo that refused to fade immediately. The hall remained silent for a heartbeat, the audience suspended in the moment. Then, slowly, applause began. It started softly but grew into a thunderous standing ovation. People cheered, clapped, and whistled, expressing their admiration for the music and the emotion she had shared. Some wiped tears from their eyes, touched by the depth and honesty of her performance. She rose from the piano and bowed deeply, feeling a surge of gratitude and fulfillment. This moment was not just about recognition. It was about the culmination of years of dedication, courage, and belief in herself. The applause was for her skill, yes, but also for her authenticity, for the way she had allowed her music to touch the hearts of everyone present. She realized that true success was not measured by accolades alone, but by the ability to connect, inspire, and communicate through her art. After the performance, several influential musicians and critics approached her. They offered mentorship, advice, and opportunities to perform in more prestigious venues. She felt a sense of humility and responsibility. Every opportunity was a chance to grow further, to refine her craft, and to share her music with more people. She understood that her journey was ongoing, that each step forward was another chance to explore, learn, and inspire. She spent the following days reflecting on her experiences. She thought about the long nights of practice, the moments of doubt and frustration, and the joy of discovering her own voice. She realized that every challenge, every misstep, and every small victory had shaped her into the musician she had become. Her confidence had grown not because of applause or recognition, but because of her dedication, perseverance, and love for music. Her practice sessions continued to be a source of discovery and inspiration. She explored new compositions, experimented with rhythm and harmony, and pushed the boundaries of her musical expression. She found joy in improvisation, in the spontaneous creation of melodies that reflected her emotions and experiences. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was her companion, her voice, and a means to connect with others in a profound way. She also devoted time to mentoring young musicians. Teaching them was a way to give back, to share the lessons she had learned, and to inspire others to find their own voices. She emphasized the importance of patience, perseverance, and authenticity in music. Watching her students grow and develop their own style brought her joy and reinforced her understanding of the transformative power of music. With each new performance, her confidence and skill grew. She embraced challenges, knowing that every opportunity to play was a chance to improve and express herself more fully. She learned that even the most accomplished musicians continue to grow, and that the pursuit of excellence is a lifelong journey. Her focus was not on perfection, but on authenticity, emotional connection, and the joy of creating music. The man who had once doubted her became a quiet supporter, acknowledging her talent and progress. Their interactions were no longer filled with tension or judgment, but with respect and mutual understanding. She had transformed not only through her skill but through her empathy, resilience, and commitment to her art. She knew that her journey would continue, with new challenges, opportunities, and experiences to shape her growth. Through it all, she remained grounded, remembering the early days when she practiced alone, unsure if anyone would ever hear her music. Those quiet moments had been the foundation of her journey, teaching her patience, discipline, and the joy of self-expression. She understood that every performance, every note, and every experience was a step toward becoming the musician and person she aspired to be. Looking ahead, she felt a sense of excitement and purpose. More performances, new compositions, and opportunities to inspire others awaited her. She knew that challenges would continue, but she was ready to face them with determination, passion, and authenticity. Each note she played, each melody she created, was a reflection of her journey and a step toward realizing her dreams. She carried with her the lessons of courage, resilience, and the power of believing in oneself, knowing that music would always be her voice, her guide, and her bridge to connect with the world.